Hello, welcome to Goodnight Flagstaff. I'm Jamie Paul. I'm very excited to be with you again to read because I love reading. I've never read Tolkien before, so it's my first time reading these stories, and I'm excited that so many people love them so much. Thank you for tuning in to our community story time now with more Tolkien. You can find a new chapter from one of our favorite family-friendly books at 8 p.m. each weeknight on the Literacy Center's YouTube channel and on Crater Radio, a local online radio station. The previous chapter is replayed on Crater Radio each weeknight at about 7:30, just before the new chapter airs. You can also listen to all previous Goodnight Flagstaff recordings on YouTube. We are currently reading The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. If you'd like to check it out to read along with us at home, it is available at the library. Check one out today with your Coconino County Library card. Please email us if you'd like to join our team of readers and connect with your community through stories. I swear, they never squeak any toys unless something like this is happening. Whew. Okay. Snavely, stop. Thank you. All ages are welcome, even puppies, if they can read. Our email is goodnightflagstaff@gmail.com. Email us to read with us. Last time we read together, the fellowship was completely broken, and the story followed Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli as they tried to catch up to the orcs who had taken Merry and Pippin. They saw the path clearly, and it led to the land of Rohan. They also found a leaf-shaped clasp from one of the hobbits' cloaks, so they hoped that the hobbits were still alive. After 3 days, they still couldn't catch up, but they did meet with riders of Rohan. Will these horsemen know anything about their missing friends? Let's see. With astonishing speed and skill, they checked their steeds, wheeled, and came charging round. Soon the three companions found themselves in a ring of horsemen, moving in a running circle, up the hill slope behind them and down, round and round them, and drawing ever inwards. Aragorn stood silent, and the other two sat without moving, wondering what way things would turn. Without a word or cry, suddenly the riders halted. A thicket of spears were pointed towards the strangers, and some of the horsemen had bows in hand, and their arrows were already fitted to the string. Then one rode forward, a tall man, taller than all the rest. From his helm, as a crest, a white horsetail flowed. He advanced until the point of his spear was within a foot of Aragorn's breast. Aragorn did not stir. "Who are you, and what are you doing in this land?" said the rider, using the common speech of the West, in manner and tone like to the speech of Boromir, man of Gondor. "I am called Strider," answered Aragorn. "I came out of the north. I am hunting orcs." The rider leaped from his horse. Giving his spear to another who rode up and dismounted at his side, he drew his sword and stood face to face with Aragorn, surveying him keenly and not without wonder. At length he spoke again. "At first I thought that you yourselves were orcs," he said, "but now I see that is not so. Indeed, you know little of orcs. If you go hunting them in this fashion, they were swift and well-armed, and they were many. You would have changed from hunters to prey if ever you had overtaken them. But there is something strange about you, Strider." He bent his clear, bright eyes again upon the ranger. "That is no name for a man that you give, and strange, too, is your raiment. Have you sprung out of the grass? How did you escape our sight? Are you elvish folk?" "No," said Aragorn. "One only of us is an elf, Legolas, from the woodland realm in distant Mirkwood. But we have passed through Lothlorien, and the gifts and favor of the lady go with us." The rider looked at them with renewed wonder, but his eyes hardened. "Then there is a lady in the Golden Wood, as old tells tale," he said. "Few escape her nets, they say. These are strange days. But if you have her favor, then you also are net weavers and sorcerers, maybe." He turned a cold glance suddenly upon Legolas and Gimli. "Why do you not speak, silent ones?" he demanded. Gimli rose and planted his feet firmly apart. His hand gripped the handle of his axe, and his dark eyes flashed. "Give me your name, Horsemaster, and I will give you mine, and more besides," he said. "As for that," said the writer, staring down at the dwarf, "the stranger should declare himself first. Yet I am named Eomer, son of Eomund, and I am called the third Marshal of Riddermark." Then Eomer, son of Eomund, third Marshal of Riddermark, let Gimli the dwarf, Glóin's son, warn you against foolish words. You speak evil of that which is fair beyond the reach of your thought, and only little wit can excuse you. Eomer's eyes blazed, and the men of Rohan murmured angrily and closed in, advancing their spears. "I would cut off your head, beard and all, Master Dwarf, if it stood but a little higher from the ground," said Eomer. "He stands not alone," said Legolas, bending his bow and fitting an arrow with hands that moved quicker than sight. "You would die before your stroke fell." Eomer raised his sword, and things might have gone ill, but Aragorn sprang between them and raised his hand. "Your pardon, Eomer," he cried. "When you know more, you will understand why you have angered my companions. We intend no evil to Rohan, nor to any of its folk, neither to man nor to horse. Will you not hear our tale before you strike?" "I will," said Eomer, lowering his blade, "but wanderers in the Riddermark would be wise to be less haughty in these days of doubt. First, tell me your right name." "First, tell me whom you serve," said Aragorn. "Are you friend or foe of Sauron, the Dark Lord of Mordor?" "I serve only the Lord of the Mark, Theoden, king, son of Thingel," answered Eomer. "We do not serve the power of the Black Land far away, but neither are we yet at open war with him. And if you are fleeing from him, then you had best leave this land. There is trouble now on all our borders, and we are threatened. But we desire only to be free and to live as we have lived, keeping our own and serving no foreign lord, good or evil. We welcomed guests kindly in the better days, but in these times the unbidden stranger finds us swift and hard. Come, who are you? Whom do you serve? At whose command do you hunt orcs in our land?" "I serve no man," said Aragorn, "but the servants of Sauron I pursue into whatever land they go. There are few among mortal men who know more of orcs, and I do not hunt them in this fashion out of choice. The orcs whom we pursue took captive 2 of my friends. In such need a man that has no horse will go on foot, and he will not ask for leave to follow the trail, nor will he count the heads of the enemy save with a sword. I am not weaponless." Aragorn threw back his cloak. The elven sheath glittered as he grasped it, and the bright blade of Anduril shone like a sudden flame as he swept it out. "Elendil," he cried, "I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and I am called Elisar, the Elfstone Dunedain, the heir of Isildur, Elendil, son of Gondor. Here is the sword that was broken and is forged again. Will you aid me or thwart me?" Gimli and Legolas looked at their companion in amazement, for they had not seen him in this mood before. He seemed to have grown in stature, while Eomer had shrunk, and in his living face they caught a brief vision of the power and majesty of the kings of stone. For a moment it seemed to the eyes of Legolas that a white flame flickered on the brows of Aragorn like a shining crown. Eomer stepped back, and a look of awe was in his face. He cast down his proud eyes. "These are indeed strange days," he muttered. "Dreams and legends spring to life out of the grass." "Tell me, Lord," he said, "what brings you here, and what was the meaning of the dark words? Long has Boromir, son of Denethor, been gone seeking an answer, and the horse that we lent him came back riderless. What doom do you bring out of the north?" "The doom of choice," said Aragorn. "You may say this to Theoden, son of Thingel. Open war lies before him, and with Sauron or against him. None may live now as they have lived, and few shall keep what they call their own. But of these great matters we will speak later, if chance allows. I will come myself to the king. Now I am in great need, and I ask for help, or at least for tidings. You heard that we are pursuing an orc host that carried off our friends. What can you tell us? That you need not pursue them further, said Eomer. The orcs are destroyed. And our friends? We found none but orcs. But that is strange indeed, said Aragorn. Did you search the slain? Were there no bodies other than those of orc kind? They would be small, only children to your eyes, unshod but clad in gray. There were no dwarves nor children, said Eomer. We counted all the slain and despoiled them, and then we piled the carcasses and burned them, as is our custom. The ashes are smoking still. We do not speak of dwarves or children, said Gimli. Our friends were hobbits. Hobbits, said Eomer. But what may they be? It is a strange name. A strange name for a strange folk, said Gimli, but these were very dear to us. It seems that you have heard in Rohan of the words that troubled Minas Tirith. They spoke of the halfling. These hobbits are halflings. Halflings, laughed the writer that stood beside Eomer. Halflings, but they are only little people in old songs and children's tales out of the north. Do we walk in legends or on the green earth in the daylight? A man may do both, said Aragorn, for not we, but those who come after will make the legends of our time. The green earth, say you? That is a mighty matter of legend, though you tread it under the light of day. Time is pressing, said the writer, not heeding Aragorn. We must hasten south, Lord. Let us leave these wild folk to their fancies, or let us bind them and take them to the king. Peace, Eothane, said Eomer in his own tongue. Leave me a while. Tell the Eord to assemble on the path and make ready to ride to Entwade. Muttering, Eothane retired and spoke to the others. Soon they drew off and left Eomer alone with the three companions. All that you say is strange, Aragorn, he said, yet you speak the truth, that is plain. The men of the mark do not lie, and therefore they are not easily deceived. But you have not told all. Will you not now speak more fully of your errand, so that I may judge what to do? I set out from Limladris, as it is named in the rhyme, many weeks ago, answered Aragorn. With me went Boromir of Minas Tirith. My errand was to go to that city with the son of Denethor, to aid his folk in their war against Sauron. But the company that I journeyed with had other business. Of that I cannot speak now. Gandalf the Grey was our leader. Gandalf, Eomer exclaimed. Gandalf Greyheim is known in the mark, but his name, I warn you, is no longer a password to the king's favor. He has been a guest in the land many times in the memory of men, coming as he will, after a season or after many years. He is ever the herald of strange events, a bringer of evil, some now say. Indeed, since his last coming in the summer, all things have gone amiss. At that time, our trouble with Saruman began. Until then, we counted Saruman our friend, but Gandalf came then and warned us that sudden war was preparing in Isengard. He said that he himself had been a prisoner in Orthanc, and he had hardly escaped, and he begged for help. But Theoden would not listen to him, and he went away. Speak not the name of Gandalf loudly in Theoden's ears. He is wroth. For Gandalf took the horse that is called Shadowfax, the most precious of all the king's steeds, chief of the Mirrors, which only the lord of the mark may ride. For the sire of their race was the great horse of Errol that knew the speech of men. 7 nights ago Shadowfax returned, but the king's anger is not less, for now the horse is wild and will let no man handle him. Then Shadowfax has found his way alone from the far north, said Aragorn, for it was there that he and Gandalf parted. But alas, Gandalf will ride no longer. He fell into darkness in the mines of Moria and comes not again. That is heavy tidings, said Eomer, at least to me, and to many, though not to all, as you may find, if you come to the king. It is tidings more grievous than any in this land can understand, though it may touch them sorely ere the ear is much older, said Aragorn. But when the great fall, the less must lead. My party has been to guide our company on the long road from Moria. Through Lorraine we came, see of which it were well that you should learn the truth ere you speak of it again. See, and thence down the leagues of the great river to the falls of Rorris. There Boromir was slain by the same orcs whom you destroyed. Your news is all of woe, cried Eomer in dismay. Great harm is this death to Minas Tirith and to us all. That was a worthy man. All spoke his praise. He came seldom to the mark, for he was ever in the wars of the east borders. But I have seen him. More like to the swift sons of Eorl than to the grave of men of Gondor he seemed to me, and likely to prove a great captain of his people when his time came. But we have had no word of this grief out of Gondor. When did he fall? It is now the 4th day since he was slain, answered Aragorn, and since the evening of that day we have journeyed from the shadow of Tol Brandir. On foot? Cried Eomer. Yes, even as you see us. Wide wonder came into Eomer's eyes. Strider is too poor a name, son of Arathorn, he said. Wingfoot I name you. This deed of the 3 friends should be sung in many a hall. 40 leagues and 5 you have measured ere the 4th day is ended. Hardy is the race of Elendil. But now, Lord, what would you have me do? I must return in haste to Theoden. I spoke warily before my men. It is true that we are not yet at open war with the Black Land, and there are some, close to the king's ear, that speak craven counsels. But war is coming. We shall not forsake our old alliance with Gondor, and while they fight we shall aid them. So say I and all who hold with me. The Eastmark is my charge, the ward of the 3rd Marshal, and I have removed all our herds and herdfolk, withdrawing them beyond Entwash, and leaving none here but guards and swift scouts. Then you do not pay tribute to Sauron? Said Gimli. No, we do not, and we never have, said Eomer with a flash of his eyes, though it comes to my ears that lie has been told. Some years ago, the Lord of the Black Land wished to purchase horses of us at a great price, but we refused him, for he puts beasts to evil use. Then he sent plundering orcs, and they carry off what they can, choosing always the black horses. Few of these are now left, but for that reason our feud with the orcs is bitter. But at this time our chief concern is with Saruman. He has claimed lordship over all the land, and there has been war between us for many months. He has taken orcs into his service, and wolf riders, and evil men, and he has closed the gap against us so that we are likely to be beset both east and west. It is ill dealing with such a foe. He is a wizard, both cunning and dwemer crafty, having many guises. He walks here and there, they say, as an old man hooded and cloaked, very like to Gandalf, as many now recall. His spies slip through every net, and his birds of ill omen are abroad in the sky. I do not know how it will all end, and my heart misgives me, for it seems to me that his friends do not all dwell in Isengard. But if you come to the king's house, you shall see for yourself. Will you not come? Do I hope in vain that you have been sent to me for help in doubt and need? I will come when I may, said Aragorn. Come now, said Eomer. The heir of Elendil would be a strength indeed to the sons of Eorl in his evil tide. There is battle even now upon the western net, and I fear that it may go ill for us. Indeed, in this riding north I went without the king's leave, for in my absence his house is left with a little guard. But scouts warned me of the orc host coming down out of the east wall 3 nights ago, and among them they reported that some bore the white badges of Saruman. So suspecting what I must fear, a league between Orthanc and the Dark Tower, I led forth my Eorl, men of my own household, and we overtook the orcs at nightfall 2 days ago, near the borders of the Entwood. There we surrounded them, and gave battle yesterday at dawn. 15 of my men I lost, and 12 horses, alas, for the orcs were greater in number than we counted on. Others joined them coming out of the east across the great river. Their trail is plain to see a little north of this spot. And others too came out of the forest, great orcs, who also bore the white hand of Isengard. That kind is stronger and more foul than all others. Nonetheless, we put an end to them, but we have been too long away. We are needed south and west. Will you not come? There are spare horses, as you see. There is work for the sword to do. Yes, and we could find a use for Gimli's axe and the bow of Legolas, if they will pardon my rash words concerning the Lady of the Wood. I spoke only as do all men in my land, and I would gladly learn better. I thank you for your fair words, said Aragorn, and my heart desires to come with you, but I cannot desert my friends while hope remains. Hope does not remain, said Eomer. You will not find your friends on the north borders. Yet my friends are not behind. We found a clear token not far from the east wall that one at least of them was still alive there. But between the wall and the downs we have found no other trace of them, and no trail has turned aside, this way or that, unless my skill has wholly left me. Then what do you think has become of them? I do not know. They may have been slain and burned among the orcs, but that you will say cannot be, and I do not fear it. I can only think that they were carried off into the forest after the battle, even before you encircled your foes, maybe. Can you swear that none escaped your net in such a way? I would swear that no orc escaped after we sighted them, said Eomer. We reached the forest eaves before them, and if after that any living thing broke through our ring, then it was no orc, and had some elvish power. No. Our friends are attired even as we are, said Aragorn, and you passed us by under the full light of days. I had forgotten that, said Eomer. It is hard to be sure of anything among so many marvels. The world is all grown strange. Elf and dwarf in company walk in our daily fields, and folks speak with the Lady of the Wood and yet live, and the sword comes back to war that was broken in the long ages ere the fathers of our fathers rode into the mark. How shall a man judge what to do in such times? As he ever has judged, said Aragorn. Good and ill have not changed since yesteryear, nor are they one thing among elves and dwarves, and another among men. It is a man's part to discern them, as much as in the golden wood as in his own house. True indeed, said Eomer, but I do not doubt you, nor the deed which my heart would do. Yet I am not free to do all as I would. It is against our law to let strangers wander at will in our land, until the king himself shall give them leave, and more strict is the command in these days of peril. I have begged you to come back willingly with me, and you will not. Loath am I to begin a battle of 100 against 3. I do not think your law was made for such a chant, said Aragorn. Nor indeed am I a stranger, for I have been in this land before, more than once, and ridden with the host of the Rohirrim, though under other names and in other guises. You I have not seen before, for you are young, but I have spoken with Eomund your father, and with Theoden, son of Thingol. Never in former days would any high lord of this land have constrained a man to abandon such a quest as mine. My duty at least is clear to go on. Come now, son of Eomund, the choice must be made at last. Aid us, or at the worst, let us go free. Or seek to carry out your law. If you do so, there will be fewer to return to your war or to your king. Eomer was silent for a moment, then he spoke. We both have need of haste, he said. My company chafes to be away, and every hour lessens your hope. This is my choice. You may go, and what is more, I will lend you horses. This only I ask. When your quest is achieved, or is proved vain, return with the horses over to Entwade to Meduseld, the high house of Edoras, where Theoden now sits. Thus you shall prove to him that I have not misjudged. In this I place myself, and maybe my very life, in the keeping of your good faith. Do not fail. I will not, said Aragorn. There were great There was great wonder, and many dark and doubtful glances among his men, when Eomer gave orders that the spare horses were to be lent to the strangers, but only Eothane dared to speak openly. "It may be well enough for this lord of the race of Gondor, as he claims," he said, "but who has heard of a horse of the mark being given to a dwarf?" "No one," said Gimli, "and do not trouble, no one will ever hear of it. I would sooner walk than sit on the back of any beast so great, free or begrudged." "But you must ride now, or you will hinder us," said Aragorn. "Come, you shall sit behind me, friend Gimli," said Legolas. "Then all will be well, and you need neither borrow a horse nor be troubled by one." A great dark grey horse was brought to Aragorn, and he mounted. "Hasufel is his name," said Eomer. "May he bear you well and be better fortune than Garulf, his late master." A smaller and lighter horse, but restive and fiery, was brought to Legolas. Arod was his name, but Legolas asked them to take off the saddle and rein. "I need them not," he said, and leaped lightly up, and to their wonder Arod was tame and willing beneath him, moving here and there with but a spoken word, such as the elvish way with all good beasts. Gimli was lifted up behind his friend, and he clung to him, not much more at ease than Sam Gamgee in a boat. "Farewell, and you may find what you seek," cried Eomer. "Return with what speed you may, and let our swords hereafter shine together." "I will come," said Aragorn. "And I will come too," said Gimli. "The matter of the Lady Galadriel lies still between us. I have yet to teach you gentle speech." "We shall see," said Eomer. "So many strange things have chanced that to learn the praise of a fair lady under the loving strokes of a dwarf's axe will seem no great wonder. Farewell." With that they parted. Very swift were the horses of Rohan. When after a little Gimli looked back, the company of Eomer were already small and far away. Aragorn did not look back. He was watching the trail as they sped on their way, bending low with his head beside the neck of Hasufel. Before long they came to the borders of Entwash, and there they met the other trail of which Eomer had spoken, coming down from east out of the Wald. Aragorn dismounted and surveyed the ground. Then, leaping back into the saddle, he rode away for some distance eastward, keeping to one side and taking care not to override the footprints. Then he again dismounted and examined the ground, going backwards and forwards on foot. "There is little to discover," he said when he returned. "The main trail is all confused with the passage of horsemen as they came back. Their outward course must have lain near the river. But this eastward trail is fresh and clear. There is no sign there of any feet going the other way, back towards Anduin. Now we must ride slower and make sure that no trace or footstep branches off on either side. The orcs must have been aware from this point that they were pursued. They may have made some attempt to get their captives away before they were overtaken." As they rode forward, the day was overcast. Low gray clouds came over the Wald. A mist shrouded the sun. Ever nearer the tree-clad slopes of Fangorn loomed, slowly darkening as the sun went west. They saw no sign of any trail to right or left, but here and there they passed single orcs, fallen in their tracks as they ran, with gray feathered arrows sticking in back or throat. At last, as the afternoon was waning, they came to the eaves of the forest, and in an open glade among the first trees they found the place of the great burning. The ashes were still hot and smoking. Beside it was a great pile of helms and mail, cloven shields and broken swords, bows and darts and other gear of war. Upon a stake in the middle was set a great goblin head. Upon its shattered helm the white badge could still be seen. Further away, not far from the river, where it came streaming out from the edge of the wood, there was a mound. It was newly raised. The raw earth was covered with fresh-cut turfs. About it were planted 15 spears. Aragorn and his companions searched far and wide about the field of battle, but the light faded, and evening soon drew down, dim and misty. By nightfall they had discovered no trace of Merry and Pippin. "We can do no more," said Gimli sadly. "We have been set many riddles since we came to Tol Brandir, but this is the hardest to unravel. I would guess that the burned bones of the hobbits are now mingled with the orcs. It will be hard news for Frodo, if he lives to hear it. and hard too for the old hobbit who waits in Rivendell. Elrond was against their coming. But Gandalf was not, said Legolas. But Gandalf chose to come himself, and he was the first to be lost, answered Gimli. His foresight failed him. The counsel of Gandalf was not founded on foreknowledge of safety for himself or for others, said Aragorn. There are some things that it is better to begin than to refuse, even though the end may be dark. But I shall not depart from this place yet. In any case, we must here await the morning light. A little way beyond the battlefield, they made their camp under a spreading tree. It looked like a chestnut, and yet it still bore many broad brown leaves of a former year, like dry hands with long splayed fingers. They rattled mournfully in the night breeze. Gimli shivered. They had brought only one blanket apiece. Let us light a fire, he said. I care no longer for the danger. Let the orcs come as thick as summer moths round a candle. If those unhappy hobbits are astray in the woods, it might draw them hither, said Legolas. And it might draw other things, neither orc nor hobbit, said Aragorn. We are near to the mountain marches of the traitor Saruman. Also, we are on the very edge of Fangorn, and it is perilous to touch the trees of that wood, it is said. But the Rohirrim made a great burning here yesterday, said Gimli, and they felled trees for the fire, as can be seen. They passed the night after safely here, when their labor was ended. They were many, said Aragorn, and they do not heed the wrath of Fangorn, for they come here seldom, and they do not go under the trees. But our paths are likely to lead us into the very forest itself. So have a care. Cut no living wood. There is no need, said Gimli. The riders have left chip and bough enough, and there is dead wood lying in plenty. He went off to gather fuel, and busied himself with building and kindling a fire. But Aragorn sat silent with his back to the great tree, deep in thought, and Legolas stood alone in the open, looking towards the profound shadow of the wood, leaning forward as one who listens to voices calling from a distance. When the dwarf had a small bright blaze glowing, the three companions drew close to it and sat together, shrouding the light with their hooded forms. Legolas looked up at the boughs of the tree reaching out above them. Look, he said, the tree is glad of the fire. It may have been that the dancing shadows tricked their eyes, but certainly to each of the companions the boughs appeared to be bending this way and that so as to come above the flames, while the upper branches were stooping down. The brown leaves now stood out stiff and rubbed together like many cold, cracked hands taking comfort in the warmth. There was a silence, for suddenly the dark and unknown forest, so near at hand, made itself felt as a great brooding presence, full of secret purpose. After a while, Legolas spoke again. Celeborn warned us not to go far into Fangorn, he said. Do you know why, Aragorn? What are the fables of the forest of Boromir had heard? I have heard many tales in Gondor and elsewhere, said Aragorn, but if it were not for the words of Celeborn, I should deem them only fables that men have made as true knowledge fades. I had thought of asking you what the truth of the matter, and if an elf of the wood does not know, how shall a man answer? You have journeyed further than I, said Legolas. I have heard nothing of this in my own land, save only songs that tell how the Onodrim, that men called Ents, dwelt here long ago, for Fangorn is old, old even as the elves would reckon it. Yes, it is old, said Aragorn, as old as the forest by the Barrow Downs, and it is far greater. Elrond says that the two are akin, the last stronghold of the mighty woods of the elder days, in which the firstborn roamed while men still slept. Yet Fangorn holds some secret of its own. What it is, I do not know. And I do not wish to know, said Gimli. Let nothing that dwells in Fangorn be troubled on my account. They now drew lots for the watches, and the lot for the first watch fell to Gimli. The others lay down. Almost at once sleep laid hold on them. Gimli, said Aragorn drowsily, remember, it is perilous to cut bough or twig from a living tree in Fangorn. But do not stray far in search of dead wood. Let the fire die, rather. Call me at need. With that he fell asleep. Legolas already lay motionless, his fair hands folded upon his breast, his eyes unclosed, blending living night and deep dream, as is the way of the elves. Gimli sat hunched by the fire, running his thumb thoughtfully along the edge of his axe. The tree rustled. There was no other sound. Suddenly, Gimli looked up, and there, just on the edge of the firelight, stood an old, bent man, leaning on a staff, and wrapped in a great cloak. His wide-brimmed hat was pulled down over his eyes. Gimli sprang up, too amazed for the moment to cry out, though at once the thought flashed into his mind that Saruman had caught them. Both Aragorn and Legolas, roused by his sudden movement, sat up and stared. The old man did not speak or make a sign. "Well, father, what can we do for you?" said Aragorn, leaping to his feet. "Come and be warm if you are cold." He strode forward, but the old man was gone. There was no trace of him to be found near at hand, and they did not dare to wander far. The moon had set and the night was very dark. Suddenly Legolas gave a cry. "The horses! The horses!" The horses were gone. They had dragged their pickets and disappeared. For a time, the three companions stood still and silent, troubled by this new stroke of ill fortune. They were under the eaves of Fangorn, and endless leagues lay between them and the men of Rohan, their only friends in this wide and dangerous land. As they stood, it seemed to them that they heard, far off in the night, the sounds of horses whinnying and neighing. Then all was quiet again except for the cold rustle of the wind. "Well, they are gone," said Aragorn at last. "We cannot find them or catch them, so that if they do not return of their own will, we must do without. We started on our feet, and we have those still." "Feet," said Gimli, "but we cannot eat them as well as walk on them." He threw some fuel on the fire and slumped down beside it. "Only a few hours ago you were unwilling to sit on a horse of Rohan," laughed Legolas. "You will make a rider yet." "It seems unlikely that I shall have the chance," said Gimli. "If you wish to know what I think," he began, again after a while, "I think it was Saruman. Who else? Remember the words of Eomer. He walks about like an old man hooded and cloaked. Those were the words. He was gone off with our horses, or scared them away, and here we are. There is more trouble coming to us, mark my words." "I marked them," said Aragorn, "but I marked also that the old man had a hat, not a hood. Still, I do not doubt that you guess right, and that we are in peril here by night or day. Yet in the meantime there is nothing that we can do but rest, while we may. I will watch for a while now, Gimli. I have more need of thought than of sleep." The night passed slowly. Legolas followed Aragorn, and Gimli followed Legolas, and the watches wore away. But nothing happened, and the old man did not appear again, and the horses did not return. Whew. That is the end of Chapter 2. Join us Monday night for Chapter 3. Good night, Flagstaff.